Hi friends, today we're going to be reading The Squirrel Who Squabbled. The Squirrel Who Squabbled. In a towering forest where summer had been, the leaves turned gold as the cold winter blew in. And autumn arrived with the sky raging red, and the sleepiest creatures got ready for bed. While up in the trees swung the flight young squirrel, who everybody knew as the squantiest Cyril. Now most foresty folk had seen to their needs through the plentiful months of mushrooms and seeds. They had built up their stores so they'd all be well fed through the frosting of winter that glittered ahead. But Cyril, he lived in the now and the here. He'd adventure and partied his way through the year. So his cupboard was empty, his hollow was bare. He hadn't a mouthful of food anywhere. But wait, what was that over there? Take a look. A single lone pine cone wedged under a nook. He squealed with delight for a very good reason, for inside were the very last nuts of this season. But Cyril wasn't alone. There were more hungry eyes. Yes, plain ahead, Bruce had his sights on the prize. Though he had gathered fresh treasures every sort, Bruce was convinced that he was one pinecone short. I simply must have it, he wistfully cried, as he dreamt of the fresh, juicy pine nut inside. So as Cyril set off on his way to the ground, Bruce, he was also last pinecone bound. He sprinted and scurried with no time to gamble. They scratched at the bark and scampered and scrambled. But their panic had haste, shook the tips of the spruce, and the pinecone it trembled, and then it came loose. Both squirrels gave chase at the lightning pace. This was the start of a wild, nutty race. "It's mine," shouted Cyril. "No, mine," hollered Bruce. "You don't stand a chance. Get up. It's no use." "I'm hungry," cried Cyril. "This cone is not yours." "Stay back," shouted Bruce. This cone's for my store." It bonked over bushes and flew through the air. It binged on the nose of a slumbering bear. It bounced over boulders, then came to a stop, then teetered and wobbled and quivered, and what do you think's gonna happen? Plop! Both squirrels followed. Oh, the water was fast. They would learn that they needed each other at last. But each was intent on how he could win, so they didn't quite notice a bird swooping in. Cyril and Bruce, they watched in dismay as the cone disappeared up, and away. "Come back," shouted Cyril. They're our nuts," exclaimed Bruce. But all hope was gone. It was simply no use. And meanwhile they drifted right into the ledge. Greeted it was driving then over the edge. Cyril and Bruce, they had taken a fall. They were paying the price for wanting it all. They'd squandered their chances to team up and share. Would their nutty young hope simply end in despair? Bruised and bedraggled, they swept past dry land. Cyril grabbed at a branch and with a trembling hand. Catching Bruce with the other, he heaved and he huffed, and puffed him to safety with panting and puffs. They dragged themselves up with sputtering wiggles, and Bruce looked at Cyril and exploded with giggles. How silly we are, he managed to mutter. How greedy I've been, he proclaimed with a sputter. We shall change from today, may the squabbling cease. We should celebrate seeing we're both in one piece. From that day forward, they made a great pair. They would gather together and found they could share. Yes, Cyril and Bruce, they knew in the end the best thing to share, a laugh with your friend. Wow, that was a really nice book. Both the squirrels wanted the pine cone, but in the end, they both shared with each other, so they both had food for the winter. That's awesome. You know what you guys could do? One thing you could do is if you go out on a walk, or when you go out on a walk, you can look for some pine cones yourself. Something you can do with your pine cones is bring them home, and if you have paint, you can paint on your pine cones. You can take the pine cone apart and see what kind of parts the pine cone has, or you can find a squirrel to share your pine cone with.